Today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners, who for more than 25 years have successfully delivered interim and permanent leadership talent to transform businesses. To hire the talent you need to enable your business to thrive, visit www.progressotalent.com today. Rich Stockdale is the founder and managing director of Oxygen Conservation, an innovative leader and environmentalist who's committed to scaling conservation. Rich combines a PhD in big data with senior level public and private sector leadership experience to continuously challenge what's possible to benefit people, wildlife and the environment. His disregard for the status quo has seen him become one of the most influential people working in the environmental sector, successfully mobilising significant investment into land acquisition, protecting and restoring the environment, and in the process growing natural capital. His focus on partners and unique collaborations has seen him step firmly onto the national stage, winning numerous awards and championing the circular economy at a landscape level through the acquisition of land for rewilding, conservation, and regenerative agriculture. Rich is quoted as saying, "We aspire to be the first conservation-focused unicorn company and redefine what is possible." So what's the story behind the story? Without further ado, let's get into it. Rich Stockdale, welcome to the Extrology podcast. Great to have you as my guest. And as is customary with all things Extrology, I like to start with the early days. So as an intro, tell us, where did you grow up and what therefore was childhood like for you?
Thank you for having me. So I grew up in North Lincolnshire. For those of you who know your British geography, that's on the south side of the River Humber. So my childhood bedroom window looked out at the Humber Bridge, which if you ever then go visit San Francisco, makes it incredibly disappointing because we had one of those at home. It just wasn't red. And everyone else is like, the Golden Gate Bridge is great. We've got a grey one, but there you go. So that's where I grew up, yeah.
Brothers, sisters, big family. What was childhood like for you?
So oldest of three boys, range of ages. My youngest brother is 7 years younger than me. Very, very different. Working class family, parents with the most unbelievable work ethic. Dad left school at 14, time served builder, was still laying bricks and digging holes into his late 60s. And mum went out at night and cleaned factories and hotels to put food on the table. So that's the best thing I learned from them. Massive work ethic. Yeah, very, very different life to what I'm fortunate enough to live now. But what I learned was I didn't want to be there forever and wanted to push onwards and upwards and outwards. So that's how it started.
What sort of things were you into as a kid?
Sport. Really loved sport. My passion and love for sport way outweighed my ability at sport. So first love was rugby, played rugby union as a kid, was always fought hard and tried to do well, but was never that quick, never that athletic. And then it pivoted into cricket, which was interesting because it's the first sport where my mind kind of came into it more than the physical side of it, and I got to do better as a result of it. So was a left-handed leg spin bowler, loved it, was quite a meek and laid-back kid. So was really good at batting until the rest of the kids ended up as 6'3" and the ball started going past your nose. And then I was like, I'm not sure about this anymore. And the other random one was a lot of chess as a kid. So randomly found a chess set at home, made my dad teach me how to play. So yeah, that combination of impact contact sport, a bit of cricket and chess at the other end. So they were my kind of childhood passions to start with. And then the big one, the big life defining one was one day my dad came home and said, grab some shorts, we're going kayaking. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay. So my dad had wanted to join the military when he was younger, but he's 5'3". So I'm 5'7" on a good day. So he wanted to join the military, went in for all the medical. He's an amazing athlete, 10 times better athlete than I was, competitive martial artist, sprinter. My brother's got the athleticism, I didn't. And came back and said, we're going kayaking because he'd done that in his youth. And that's probably the pivotal defining part of my childhood because that love for the water, that love for environment went through to me doing geography at uni, PhD in environmental things. And without that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today.
It's really interesting that I think first and foremost, there's it's clearly a competitive element to much of what you describe. I think the bit that gets lost about being a left arm spin bowler as a cricketer is that strikes me as being quite keenly strategic. There's a lot of thinking that goes in around how am I going to get this lad out? Or and then clearly chess, a very strategic game. Feeding then through to the outdoors and kayaking. It was one of my first questions inevitably was, when did you first recall taking an interest in the environment and the outdoors and that around you? But it was kayaking, and to your point. Do you remember that first time on the water and how that went?
Yeah, I fell in a lot. But that was part of the fun, because I always loved swimming. Water was my thing, and lost grandparents quite early in life. But one of the early memories is going swimming every Sunday with my dad's mum, grandma. So when it came to falling out the boat, that was part of the fun. Middle of summer falling in, less fun in winter, but more fun falling in the river in the summer. Yeah, and you mentioned the strategic side of it. I think often asked about when the sort of entrepreneurial part of my mind kicked in. And I think probably from the early days, but I didn't recognize it as entrepreneurial. I recognized it on, that's a problem, how can I solve it? And that's been everything I've done. So, if I'm playing cricket, where can I learn something? How can I get better at it? And this is like early 90s where you couldn't put YouTube on. There was one book on leg spin bowling. I had to save my pocket money to buy this book on leg spin bowling, and it was all right-handed. I was like, right, how do I translate that? How do I change it? How do I make it work? And that's kind of been something that's existed across everything I've done. What can I borrow from a certain field and apply it to a different context? Yeah, and that's been everything. So, I'm sure we'll come on to it, but I've had a collection of horrific summer jobs all through university and school to pay my way forward. And even when I was washing up pots in the kitchens, it was like, okay, what's the most efficient way I can do this? How can I arrange that? And I don't know why. My brain just goes, what's the most efficient way I can do that? How can I solve that problem? What's the opportunity? If you said to me, one job was unpacking nappy boxes out of the back of a lorry for 12 hours a day, me and a 7-foot Estonian chap, and he smiles at me and goes, I'll do the top ones, you do the bottom ones. We can make that work. So, what's the most efficient way you can do anything, and how can you... Yeah, and that's been one of my mantras that's kind of led through to business. How you do anything is how you do everything.
What about who were the posters on the wall? Who were the heroes as a child? Who did you look up to?
Yeah, so the whole role model and hero thing I've really struggled with. In some regards, my dad, from a alpha male, I mean, he pull his hair out with me doing it. Doesn't do conversation. That's for other people. But blokey bloke, and sort of his role models were the Jean-Claude Van Damme's and the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, and they were the books that were on the bookshelf when I was a kid. But for me, the early ones I think of, like Shane Warne, big, yeah. It's the leg spin, And though when you see those things that make people go, that's impossible. So the ball of the century that are you a cricket fan?
Yeah, Mike Gatting.
So exactly.
Mike Gatting, yeah.
So things that are that transformative that it makes people go, oh my God, you've had such a leap. There was a basketball player called Vince Carter who in the 90s won the slam dunk competition, but by such a way reinvented what it meant. If you haven't seen it, look at it on YouTube. And the entire crowd's just like, how is that a thing? I really liked professional wrestling as a kid. I was a kid of the 80s and 90s. So many of us did. And
Saturday afternoons, right?
One of those. There was a guy called Mick Foley who was thrown like 30 feet off the top of a cell in 98, 99. And like the biggest fall anyone had before that was like 12 feet. So it's not a little bit. It's oh my God, what is that transformational thing? And I always liked that. And following it through today, I'm not a football fan, but I would prefer Messi over Ronaldo, because it's not just the impact and the win, it's the artistry you can do it with. And that kind of permeated lots of stuff I did when I was younger. But role models are always something I really struggled with. I know some people like to be able to point to someone and go, oh, they've done it, I want to emulate that. I've always found the opposite. If I can't see someone doing it, I've gone, oh, I'd like to do. Maybe that's the bowling. Maybe there was no brilliant left arm leg spinner at the time. There was Paul Adams, the South African guy who had the weird double jointed action. That was a bit later after I stopped playing cricket. And no, I was still playing cricket, but he was a bit different. But yeah, I've never really got the whole role model poster child thing.
No, it was. I remember probably Phil Edmonds and John Embry as two spinners from my, and then Phil Tufnell.
Yeah.
But I think Embry was a left armer.
No, right, was he right off spin? Wasn't because there was Underwood, that like historic cricketer, that was amazing. But I'm not sure Phil Tufnell was many people's role model.
No.
Comedy, yes, but otherwise, I'm not sure.
Not necessarily for his sporting prowess, although he didn't do too bad. But I think as a character, which I think is what makes. Not cricket unique by any means, but I think is what makes cricket special are those characters. I think probably rugby similarly has characters that that sadly, I think for many sports have started to go out of the
Professionalism's taken over.
Professionalism has really taken over.
When I talk about cricket, my friends now are like, "You don't like cricket, do you?" I have such a varied level of interest and stuff. So now I would say my sporting interests are more aligned to still love cricket and the rugby, but American football is my big thing. I didn't find American football till uni, so tried to get in the Great Britain kayaking team, water polo, which like swimming water polo, but in kayaks. It was going to be in the Commonwealth Games in Manchester in 2000, and I was like, I'm going to do that. That's what I want to. You're striving for an identity as a young adult. Like, what is it I can be great at? I want to find the thing I can be brilliant at. And that felt like the one. And even that on the role model thing, there was no one there that I pointed to and went, I want to be that person. But I had an imaginary person in my head. So every time I was going out for a run or hitting a gym session, I had this imaginary person who I hadn't met yet that was like, well, they'll be doing it. So you need to outwork them. And that probably 17, 18 was a time when that clicked that I will outwork everyone else in the room, whatever I'm doing, because that's the bit I can control. So didn't make the final cut of the kayaking squad. I wasn't good enough, wasn't the thing for me. And then went to uni, threw a strop and went, well, I'm not kayaking anymore. I'm going to do a sport that's just ridiculous for fun. I'm not going to take something so seriously. So my mates were hanging around with the American footballers, some people I knew already there. And I was like, well, that seems ridiculous. Let's give that a go. And then realised I can't do sport for fun. So got really into that. Heavier into the gym, heavier in general, and then American football was my thing. And that probably 18 to 22 was the time I went from being a bit meek and a bit quieter to being, okay, if you want something, run through a wall to go get it. And American football really unlocked that for me because, so you padded up, right? And some people think that makes, and it's not as athletic as a sport in this country as rugby. The proper athletes play rugby at high level. The ones that aren't as good play American football. Fair enough. But some people see that as protection. The really good American footballers, when I was playing, saw that as weapons. So it's suddenly like, oh, I can hit this person as hard as I want. And it doesn't hurt. As soon as you get that mental change, and that was a big change for me that went through to business and life after that, oh no, just go take it. And that didn't click until like early 20s, mid-20s, something like that.
But again, I think the thing that strikes me about American football, and I grew up, watching on Channel 4 in the 80s, the Chicago Bears team of the 80s with Walter Payton and the Fridge, William Perry, and all those kind of guys. I was fascinated by it because I loved all sport. But the thing that strikes me about American football is on first impression, it just looks like, respectfully, lumps of meat hitting each other hard. Actually, again, you come back to the strategic thought that goes into the plays. Yeah. It strikes me as a way more complex game. I suppose the outcome's not complex. What you're trying to achieve isn't complex, but getting there is not straightforward.
That's true of every sport. So I think the more you understand a sport, the more nuance you see in it and the beauty you see in it. So I liken it to, you can see a poster of an amazing painting, or you can see the actual original. And I'm not an art guy. I like modern art and quirky stuff, but that's it. But if you go see an original painting with the brush strokes and the textures, there's just more to it. So it's like it's in HD rather than SD. And I think that's true about sport. So I'm not a football fan. I love Guardiola and Klopp and have read their books because what can I borrow from them and apply to my world? And I think in business, we can borrow so much from high level sport. And before we started recording, we joked about what we had for breakfast this morning. Even that, it's only just, nutrition's only just started coming into talking about business, right? And I've got a team that I want to work all the time at 100 miles an hour and try and save some of the world. Well, if they're not fueling themselves well enough and hydrating and things like that, you can't do it. So they're things we can borrow from high-level sport.
I had a transformative experience from a business perspective with a leadership group I was part of back in 2016, I think, or 17. And we went on at the time you get a lot of sticks like strategy weekend, right? Away weekend. Oh yeah, that's basically a weekend on the beer. No, that was the accusation that was being levelled, but it wasn't. And actually,
was there some beer?
There was some beer, but interestingly, we weren't allowed the beer until the last night. So we actually ended up going to a beautiful place. We went to Chamonix in September, and we did the whole piece was around an organisation called Chamonix Hardcross. Brilliant organisation, but the whole weekend, so there was a nutritionist, there was a ultra runner, there was a psychologist, there was a triathlete, and it was all focused around performance. And there was an expert on sleep from an institute in Geneva. And the whole thing was how do you eradicate, in a sales organisation particularly, how do you get rid of this, kind of the 2-3 p.m. slump? Because we all kind of, and I was the worst exponent of this sort of thing, come in early, I'm running a sales floor. I'm hitting the coffees from literally the minute I walk in. Bang, bang, bang. And then you kind of, so you go full out all morning and you get to 2:00 and you think, I could do with a nap, but I haven't got time for that. So I go and get another coffee and a bar of chocolate.
Yeah.
So we totally transformed as a consequence of that weekend and all the learning that we took away from it. We got rid of the vending machines. We replaced it with nuts and seeds and fruits, and we got everybody drinking water, and we looked at hydration. We looked at sleep. It made such a fundamental difference to performance in the organisation, and all that. The guy that runs it, Damien, is a former rugby player. So he'd taken all of the learning around nutrition. His wife was a corporate nutritionist. Taken all that learning, applied it, and thought, how can we take that peak performance principle and apply that to business?
Yeah.
And and so to your point, I think that the parallels between sport and business and the learning that can apply between the two are huge.
Totally agree. Your strategy point about American football, it's absolutely true. So I was very fortunate. I captained the Great Britain American football team for students in the States in 2003, 4.
Wow, that must have been an experience.
It's incredible. I got the hell kicked out of me by the Americans and came back with one knee. 3 knee surgeries later, it was still worth it. I was a foot shorter than the next person in my position. On the photo,
what position did you play?
So I played nose tackle, which is my job is to stop the offense being able to do anything and go get the quarterback. Literally, I just outworked everyone else and was more aggressive. I was an unpleasant human being on the pitch. I know you struggle to believe that, right? But outworked everyone else. And on the photo, when there's the handshakes and the flags at the beginning, I look like the mascot. I look like someone's little brother because everyone else is like 6'7". I'm 5'7", and it's ridiculous. And that just kind of, so many parts of my life, I'm just not supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to be. They didn't design it that way. So I captained them in my rookie year, and I turned around to the head coach, and I was like, and I looked at him and he's like, you just outworked everyone. And no one can say you can't do it if the kid who's been here 10 minutes is outworking everyone else. And I've just carried that through every bit. And that was, 20 years ago.
So geography at university?
Yeah, by accident.
Right,
actually.
okay. Tell me, how did...
I went to do law because, do you ever remember a TV show called Ally McBeal?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had a massive...
Who were the first I think, my takeaway from that was they had unisex bathrooms.
Yes.
Which was like, that's a revolution.
So
going corporate life in the 90s, I was thinking, how on earth is that happening?
So I always saw the world through numbers, right? So I'm a geek in terms of, and that goes to the numbers, the chess, the strategy, that type of thing. Always struggled with language until I did my PhD. The beauty about doing a PhD is you do a bad essay at uni or at school, you get a bad mark and it goes away. You do a bad draft of your PhD, you just keep getting it back and it doesn't go away for 4 years until you nail it. So it makes you drill your language. And Dad, very dyslexic, undiagnosed because you didn't do that in the 60s, just got told you were troublesome and get out of school. But like I look now and all the signs are there. I really struggle with language and really came to that late, which again now people, so I write a lot, I enjoy writing now, and everyone's like, there's no way you struggled with that. And I'm like, struggle with everything, and that's how you get better at it. But no, so went to uni to do law because I liked the John Cage character about Ally McBeal because of the way he presented in court and talked and language. And whilst I didn't read, and I never read until like late 20s, kind of got through a PhD just about. I mean, we can talk about that, but barely read until we'd go on holiday, and I hated holidays because I don't like not being at work. And my now wife would say, you're not allowed to moan about being bored until you've read a book. And then I discovered reading books that could help me at work. And I was like, we're away. This is amazing. I love this. But yeah, came late to reading, but went to uni to do law and lived at home to do that. No one in my family had been to uni. I had no idea what I was doing and looked and went, I'm not clever enough, rich enough or connected enough to be a successful lawyer. And I'm more interested in rivers. Let's go do geography. So swapped over, which is a really good idea because I like loopholes and margins and peripheries. So I would have either been an incredibly successful lawyer or in prison, I think, if I'd have been a lawyer. Whereas actually it's much better now getting to work with brilliant lawyers and having the freedom to play and create on the margin.
So early career, so the Environment Agency is a big chunk of career, 9 years as I read, as I recall. What was the appeal of the Environment Agency from your perspective? And I guess, therefore, what is it that you set out to achieve?
Yeah. So came out of PhD like the week of the financial crisis, literally the whole, and I had no idea what that meant. So bear in mind, really hard-working family, but you didn't talk about money, wasn't a thing. Very, very sort of traditional northern upbringing. You don't take chances. You don't put yourself forward for anything. Even at uni, when they name me captain of sports, my dad would be like, you probably shouldn't do that. don't put yourself out front. It was that type of ethos and, just keep your head down, work hard, don't say anything to anyone, get on with it, which was so juxtaposed to how I wanted to view the world and wanted to do something that mattered. So that was a challenge. And so knew nothing about business. My parents, very private family as well. So no connections, no networks, nothing. I had no idea how business worked. So came out and all I knew was academia, or all the way through uni. I had to pay to put myself through uni. So I worked in steelworks and put fences up around storage farms and unpacked nappy boxes out the back of lorries and worked in kitchens and did door work and every bad job you can imagine. I've had one. Play bad summer job, top trump. So I didn't know what to do. So I started applying for jobs. And when you come from one very distinct area like academia, the language, the achievements you talk about in the real world don't mean anything. They're very specific to academia, but they're all about ideas and talking and influencing. And a business goes, well, none of those things made any money or generated customers or did anything. That's not applicable to me. And I met this really amazing recruiter who I lost touch with. And he got my CV and he's like, look, clearly you're really passionate. You've done some cool stuff. I think he liked American football, so saw that on the CV. And he said, look, I'll help you find a job. And he put my CV into someone he knew at the Environment Agency. And it was the only place that was recruiting. Literally everywhere else I spoke to went too qualified because I got first in a PhD or not enough experience in a corporate sense. And I just needed a job. It was just, and I did security work at Glastonbury that summer to earn the money to pay to move to do the first job at the Environment Agency. And I liked that environment was on the label, but I just needed a job. That was it. And 9 years there, met some incredible people. It's a tough place. It's a bit like Yes Minister without the comedy. It's civil service is not the place for me. If you want a nice steady life, if you want to work 10 to 3, if you want to wait for your weekends and wait for your retirement, a lot of people in the public sector are like that. I was very fortunate. I met some great people who helped me push on in my career, and there are some people who want to save the environment there. There are a lot that don't. And because I was talking about wanting to make a difference and wanting to save the world and wanting to, I don't mean all the world, I can't save all the world, but a little bit, at least save a little bit. So when you're quite junior, that's very exciting and gets you promoted. When you're not quite senior, that's scary for everyone. And they're like, whoa, hold on a minute. So I ended up with about 16 jobs in 9 years. So every 6 months I went, I'm not sure about this. I should probably leave. So they just kept promoting me. And I ended up as their youngest director, and I ran the West Midlands for a while, the East Midlands, and then spent 18 months running Devon and Cornwall, which was a challenging but incredible experience. And ultimately, we had the most amicable divorce because I was bored stiff of the bureaucracy and not being able to do things and wanted to push on, and they were fed up with me pushing them too hard. So 2018, we said, I'm going to go do something else. We were just about to have our second child. I was tired. I was drawn down by it. I was managing teams of like 300-400 people. A lot of them just want things to stay as they are. Just don't change too much. And that's the reverse for me. So I needed a break, needed to do something different. So stepped away, decided I was going to take 3 or so months off, maybe more, and focus on being a dad for a bit. And then got an offer from another company called Sanctus, who were amazing. And they offered me the exact opposite. So they spoke to me and said, we want to set up a pure environmental arm of what we do. They're an amazing company, probably the country's leading expert in complex engineering of sites like oil refineries and power stations, and they'll clean them up. And they had the most amazing engineers and technical teams, but there's not a power station that needs cleaning up every day. So they'd end up with big gaps in their business where they'd have skilled people on retainers. And the owner a chap called Peter Cook and the MD Sean Tolfrey, amazing people, way ahead of their time in terms of the way they view the world. And they said, well, we've got these amazing people. They could do some good in those interim periods. And so they spent years trying to find an environment director to start this new wing of the business to say, well, look, let's take these engineers, get them planting new woodlands and designing new river systems and removing weirs while they're not doing the heavy engineering work. And because they're used to these really complex, pressurized, dangerous environments, these other ones will be almost a break for them and therapeutic and positive. So they bring me in, and it was such an amazing experience. So they invited me in and they pitched me on the job. And in the public sector, every interview is very regimented. You answer these set questions and you have to set performance. I go and meet Sanctus for the first time. They slide a double espresso across the table. They pitch me. They've done the work on me and go, we'd love you to come and run this department. And I was like, I was coming in for a chat. I'm taking 3 months off. And they went, well, do that. Come and see us in January. And it was amazing. So
what was the appeal from your perspective of the offer they put in, of the opportunity they're presenting?
Freedom and difference and opportunity and excitement and taking the handcuffs off. I once did this piece of work, beautiful presentation that I'd produced, handed it in, and got asked to make it look worse because it looked too expensive. I was like, but I did it. Yeah, but people might think it's too expensive. So that's the ethos, and because you can't waste public money, so you can't be seen to be and all public sectors they're in a really tough spot because we judge them unfairly. You know, if you saw a glossy thing out there that a government, you'd be like, hold on a minute, how much does that cost? And it hadn't cost anything other than my salary, which was very small. So it was difficult, and I just was the wrong fit. And I learnt then you have to find the culture fit that allows you to be excellent. And right now, when we're really fortunate that we have 50, 60 applicants for every role we put out there in oxygen conservation, and we really get to ask the person, are we the right fit for you, and are you the right fit for us? Because if you're not, you can't thrive there. I always think about, and for being someone who doesn't particularly like football, I have a lot of football analogies. Do you remember when Thierry Henry went to Barcelona?
Yes.
I heard the Barcelona team and him talk about how it was so difficult because he was incredible at Arsenal, and the runs he'd make at Arsenal, the Barcelona players were going, where's he going? Because it was so different to their system. I think the same is true as business. If you don't have the right culture fit, you can work really hard, you can be brilliant, but you won't thrive. So the attraction behind Sanctus was different and new, and I was ready. And they literally said, you know, you've gone from managing hundreds of people, come in, spend a year thinking, meeting people, talking about the business, don't manage anyone, which for me was just like, wow. Because managing, what's the biggest team you've ever looked after?
Crikey, nowhere near the numbers that you're talking about.
Okay.
30, 40 people.
But still, at 30 or 40, there's still one person who's really struggling with something, one person who's not very well, two people who need a promotion. So you make that 400, there's 10 people who are seriously ill. There's 10 that have got problems. There's 10 that need a promotion. There's 30 or 40 who've been mistreated by corporates as an organisation previously that need looking after. And my approach was to try and be the sort of leader, and I know that's a bit leadership and management and talk like that, but I just wanted to help people when I was there. And you can't individually I couldn't carry the emotional weight of 400 people all that time because you can't save them all. And you try, and I had two young kids at home and a wife, and my wife used to track me on my iPhone, and I'd say, right, I'm heading home now. And it would take me 2 hours to get out the door because everyone, can I just grab a minute, Rich? Can I just grab a minute? And I wanted to say yes because I wanted to be the leader for that person. You can't do it for 400 people, not forever, and not in that way. You have to do it in a different way. So you learn lessons as you go. And one thing was being really fortunate because I had so many different jobs. I could reject the stuff I didn't like about the way I worked or the way I interacted and learn from it, reinvent and go again and again and again. Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? You look back, and whether it was at the steelworks or putting up fences around storage farms, you don't realise the lesson you're learning until you put it into practice 20 years later and you go, oh, I learned that lesson then. Or I think all those manual jobs have been so useful to what we do now because, and we'll come on to oxygen, I'm sure, but I don't mind if I'm talking to the exec chairman of a site or the gamekeeper. They're just people. And that's rare in our industry. A lot of people who buy and sell large-scale land blank the gamekeeper or they blank the clerical staff. And we actually just got a really amazing deal through. And we bought a part of one bigger estate and got a call from the exec chairman saying, my team on the ground that welcomed you on site told me to sell to you. They said, of all the people we met, you were the only people that were courteous, polite. And he said, did you really clear the table with the staff? I'm like, yeah, they were. And he's like, that's what I would have done too. And everyone else that came was just arrogant and only talked to the bosses. And I didn't know I was doing that. We just did what we would do anyway. You know, like if you invite me around, I'd try and clear the table. You know, so yeah, learn lessons along the way, right?
What do you think that Sanctus experience taught you?
Commercial. So in the public sector, money's not real. That's not to say public money isn't important. It absolutely is. But it's tokens for the exchange of things. So I did not have the ability to pay a brilliant member of staff more money. It's slotted. I didn't have the ability to make a different commercial decision. It's all taken care of. I never billed a person. So I'd ran budgets in the hundreds of millions across my time there, but I'd never seen a pound leave or come anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a different type of currency and money. And a lot of stuff is dictated by a calendar. So in government, a pound in April when it comes, in fact, you never get your budget in April. You get your budget in like October when it's agreed for an April start. That's gold dust. You can't touch it. No one's got any money. After Christmas, every government organisation will tell you, get the money out the door because you've got to have it spent. Now, I never saw that to actually be true, but everyone tells you, oh no, if you don't spend it this year, you won't get it next, which That was never true, but that's the narrative you sort of get. Whereas commercial, things matter, decisions matter, and that money goes to people's salaries. And if you want to be a great business and a positive business, you have to be in business and you have to be financially viable. And that's why people coming out of the public sector, there is some brilliant people, but they struggle to find commercial jobs because it's such a different culture and such a different transition. And I think Sanctus allowed me to learn about what it means to build clients and talk about money. And so if you go back to my childhood, don't talk about money. Academia, money's not a thing. You just turn up, you do your research, and someone else has won a budget for it. Public sector, you don't talk about money. I was really blind to how you have a good negotiation. Now, by this point, I'm reading everything I can on it. Have you read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss?
No.
I'll send you a copy. Incredible book. Former chief hostage negotiator for the FBI. And he says, well, you can't split the difference if it's a person, can you?
No.
So amazing book. And so read everything I can in it. But until you start having commercial conversations with people, the etiquette of it and how it works and things, I really learned that. Yeah, operating in a commercial environment is the big one, and the and relationship management in a different way. So again, public sector, very internally focused. So your stakeholders and you're all internal. You're almost taught to don't really look outside too much. It's scary out there. Stay inside. Jest mostly. Is it jest? No, probably not. Stay inside. Whereas commercial, you have to spread your net. You have to speak to people. You have to, and brand and being proud of who you are as a company and portraying that, which that just wasn't a thing in the public sector.
So why Oxygen? Where did the inspiration come from? What's the story behind it?
Yeah. So Oxygen House is a private equity and a venture capital fund started 12 years ago in Exeter by one principal investor and three friends and colleagues that he's known for a long time. And their background is statistical analysis and maths. Really brilliant at that. Some of the country's leading mathematicians. Very successful in that field, in prediction algorithms and statistical analysis. And they're all hugely passionate about the environment and sustainability. And I met them when I worked in the Southwest for the Environment Agency. Myself and one of the board spoke at a conference, and neither of us remember which conference this was. But a member of my team at the time heard us both speak and was like, you two did essentially the same presentation. Our board member was a bit more aggressive than I was about it, but similar presentation. And he went up to this guy at Auction House and said, you need to meet. So did an introduction for us, met, got on like a house on fire, had a fantastic conversation and kept in touch 3 years later. I was doing things at Sanctus. And whenever Auction House, the wider investment vehicle and group, wanted to do something interesting environmentally, I'd get a call for a chat. What do I think about this? Could we look at this? Any ideas? Who might we talk to about that? So I always stayed in contact that way. And Christmas 2020, they'd taken a trip to Patagonia, South America, to visit the Tompkinson Foundation, which is the lineage from Patagonia, the former chief exec of Patagonia. They bought a huge amount of land to look after it in South America. Which
Let My People Go Surfing. It's probably one of the most transformative books I've ever read.
Yes, so good. It's on we expect to do a website update with a virtual bookcase on there, and it's on the bookcase. Yeah, such a good book. So get that call 2020, and so we're thinking of buying some land and trying to have more of an impact than we're having. So at that point, the group had donated significant amounts of money to Wildlife Trust and Rivers Trust and Woodland Trust anonymously, very private. But they said, we need to have more impact. We need to do more. What can we do? So I get a call, and as I usually do, I say, tell you what, I'm literally reading 3 books at the minute. Give me Christmas. Let's have a chat in January. So I dove into the books over Christmas, and I just got obsessed. I was like, now is the time we can do this. Natural capital, carbon, biodiversity, changes to land use management, that renewable energy. There's all these different sectors, and you're very good at this because he's looping back to so many stories in my past. So borrowing ideas from different fields and smashing them together. So, things from the engineering world, things from the environment sector, all come together. I'm like, now is the time when we could buy land at scale, deliver positive environmental and social impact, and that will deliver a financial return. That's never been possible before. For the last 10 years, the environment sector had been talking about natural capital, about paying the environment to do good things. But it wasn't real yet. It was all conceptual economics. But 2020, it was starting to become real.
Why? What changed?
I think it's the realization. So lots of really important reports, Gupta review, government policy starting to move towards that. Michael Gove, I was fortunate to spend a bit of time with Michael Gove when I was working in the EA. Now, whatever people think about his policies or his approach to anything, he was one of the few MPs, and I've met quite a lot, who genuinely listened to understand, not to respond. Because a lot of people, they're nodding while you're talking, but they're just waiting to speak.
Yeah.
I saw him meet a lot of people, and he genuinely would listen, and he had his feet on the ground, and he'd come and visit flood defences and projects. And I think the environment, in a political sense, moved forward so much with Michael Gove. And that's without any from political judgment, just on an environmental side. He moved things forward. You then got voluntary carbon markets starting to bubble up because the realities of climate change, you go back 5 or 10 years, people were still denying it was a thing. Okay, now you can't. We literally sat talking to a bank who wanted to fund us and offer us additional funding to buy land, which we didn't take. The day after the wildfires in London were happening. And in my deck, when we talk about oxygen conservation, there's a line about the world burning. It literally was. The embers were still there while we were talking about it. And I think so. Public perception. I think COVID was a big thing as well. We saw a transformative change from people's awareness of the natural environment and how much they love their own places and spaces because they were taken away. When you lose something, you realise an appreciation of it.
Do you think as well that COVID forces us to slow down? So whatever it is you do in life, there's always an awful lot of background noise, right?
Yeah.
But we go about our daily lives that it almost becomes someone else's background noise because we're doing our stuff, right? But all of a sudden we were forced to stop. Even if we were working from home, we just had more time to tune into our sense of self and the wider world. Not everybody did, but it's a broad sweeping statement. But because what is it actually? My sense is we became more aware. So this was a global pandemic. Hey, this is affecting other people in other countries. So I think the challenge oftentimes for much of what we'd seen historically around climate change was it was kind of stuff that happened elsewhere. Apart from the thing that strikes me from a UK perspective, floods seem to really feature in my mind, and the whole issue of floods seem to become, I've got no factual evidence around this, but intuitively feel like they've become a bigger issue in the last 15, 20 years than I remember them as a kid. That may be because they get more coverage, but it feels like they're more prevalent. But actually, dramatic, seismic, climactic events happened in other countries, right? But all of a sudden we look at a global pandemic and we go, oh, we are actually all connected, right? This stuff goes on all over the world, and what's happening in this country, what's happening in that on that continent, how they contain it just was everywhere. Do you think that had an effect? Or is that a bit of a simplistic way of looking at the fact that actually we just might have woken up a little bit?
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think I'd viewed it through that lens, but I think that makes a lot of sense. I think certainly the background noise, the hum being peeled away, and you actually thinking about just being purposeful and thinking about the impact you have and what the taken away bit is the bit that really sort of speaks to me. And we've seen that really recently. I don't know if you cited on, so Dartmoor used to be the only place in England you were allowed to wild camp. So you could rock out onto open hillside, camp overnight, fine, you were allowed to. Everywhere else you needed landowner permission. And a private landowner just took the national park to court to argue that shouldn't exist as a rule. And the broad basis for his argument is camping isn't a recreational activity. And he won his court case. So the huge uproar on Dartmoor. And I just wrote a piece on this. And my view is it's not just because there was a big march this weekend. Some 3,000 people on Dartmoor marched to say this is not fair. You can't take this right away. And we had a lot of friends that went down to this, and they were saying the people they were talking to, many of them have never wild camped, nor intend to, but they're just fed up of things about the natural environment being taken from them. And I think it's part of that. And almost we've had so much of the environment taken from us. I could reel off 50 facts about species that are lost by the day and the climate absolutely degrading. And young people now are mourning things they've never had because our generation and the one before took them away by decisions we made.
Do you think that if you look at the business angle, one of the things that struck me was that for years, the sense of corporate social responsibility, everybody knew this was it was a good thing to be seen to be doing.
Yeah.
But actually, what's the financial benefit really? What's the stakeholder benefit? And I had this really, this is a really poor thought through, I suspect, ill-considered theory, but this sense of when need becomes must. So I think that as humans, we have this, there's all stuff we know
everyone loves a deadline.
We know we need to do it, right? But until we absolutely must, that's when we really start to gain momentum. And I wonder as to the corporate implication. I don't mean corporate in the classic big business sense. Yeah. I mean all of us in business, frankly in society, when we've gotten to a point where we think actually we know we've needed to do something about this for quite some time, but we're kind of at the point, right, where it's must. It's shit or bust. Do you get that sense that there was a sort of gathering of momentum? Because I know that certainly now, if you look at the investor community, they are taking a very active interest in organisations that are not only seen to be doing good things, but are actually doing good things, and are penalising those that aren't. So there's starting to be increasingly a commercial sense of this stuff has to happen now. It's no longer a nice to have. It's an essential thing. Do you get that sense? Do you see that
Without
sense?
a shadow of a doubt. And when we started forming the idea of oxygen conservation, you've hit on all the points that were converging there. So markets were converging, the climate was worsening, COVID was happening, all those things were coming together, and it's like, now's the time. And timing is so important in business and in life, right? I was once told, now I never checked this out, that Apple tried to launch the iPad essentially before the iPhone as like a touchscreen device, and it bombed because it was too early. I never checked. That might be an anecdote. But timing is so... Imagine starting Google when you didn't have the computer processing to do it. You've got to hit things at the right time. So you brought me back into oxygen conservation. So 2020, Christmas, go away, come back and say to the board at Oxygen House, I think you could do this. This would be amazing. You should definitely look at this project. So scribbled down some ideas to them and said, see how it flies. And the board member I know really well was like, can you come and have a chat with us? And I said, yeah, sure. Had a conversation. And they went, this is amazing. We'd like you to do that and run that with us. And I was like, oh, I'm busy. We just won some most amazing projects at Sanctus. We just won the biggest river restoration project in the country. We were taking out a former sewerage works. This is how we used to treat in the environment in the 70s. They dammed off a river in the northwest, poured concrete down the bed of the river so that the sewerage would go past the sewerage works faster. That's how we treated rivers. So we just won the project to go in there and take out that concrete and restore the river. And they were like, no, we're going to push this to the moon, Rich. We want to save the world doing this. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I want a bit of that. So it took 6 months. Myself and another colleague, Dan, we started Oxygen Conservation in June 2021 because we didn't want to let the organisations down. We were doing these projects because they were wildlife trusts and rivers trusts and charities and local authorities. And we built a whole network of new nature reserves in Leicestershire and things you can go past and say to the kids, I did that. And that's one of the driving things behind Oxygen Conservation. My kids haven't yet, although a little story about my 6-year-old Emma. We were walking through a car park to charge the Tesla the other day, and there was a water bottle on the floor. And she grabbed it first, picked it up, and I said, oh, what are you picking that up for? And we go, it kills animals, plastic, doesn't it? Unicorns and fish. And I said, unicorns? She said, well, yeah, it'd get stuck on the horn, wouldn't it? I was like, yes, excellent. It will, Emma. It absolutely will. June 21, we started Oxygen Conservation, and me, Dan, head out on the road, find land where we can deliver positive environmental improvement. And then fast forward, so we bought our first site January 22. And in the last calendar year, we bought 25,000 acres across 8 sites in 7 counties and 3 countries. And to the best of our knowledge, we bought more land than anyone else last year in the country, certainly the most land for conservation. And along the way, we've had the most amazing journey in all these different places and environments and people and done about 10 things that we were told were impossible along the way. And it's been an incredible journey. And now we've got a team of 14 today, 4 amazing interns that are starting this year. And it's just incredible. And as you say about in the investor side of things, every day we have a call that makes you go, was that call a thing? So someone will ring up and go, we'd like to buy your company for a big number. We want to buy all the carbon you're looking after. We had a call about a month ago saying, was it just before Christmas? Yes, about a month ago saying they'd read a piece I'd done in a magazine, read up about us and said, we think you are perfectly placed for an IPO in the next 12 months. We'd like to back you to the moon to do that. I'm like, we're just trying to save the environment. Well, thank you for the call. We're really interested. We'll come back to you.
I was going to say, what is it that you set out to achieve?
So our original goal was we wanted to put 1,000 acres under management for nature, 1,000 acres, full stop. And we did 25,000 in the first year. So
goodness me.
The next step, by the end of this year, we would like 50,000 acres under management, the end of the following 100,000 acres. But literally I had a call on the way here this morning that means we may well be placed to do 100,000 acres by the end of this year. There was once this, do you remember Steve Irwin, the Australian conservationist? Yeah. A friend of mine sent me a clip of him, and he was asked, it must be like 20 years ago now, I'm not sure when he passed, and he said, I will take every penny I can get from anyone, and I will buy land and I will protect it and give it back to nature. Now, I can't do that, and it wouldn't be appropriate to do that, because if I take a pound from Shell, that's a problem, because how you do anything is how you do everything, and we need to do things in the right way and pro-environment in everything we do. But his sentiment's right. We have to save every bit of the environment we can, and we have to do every positive step we can. Our only wrinkle where we're different from some organisations is that is for people and wildlife for us. People are such a big part of that, because if you're not factoring people and local communities into your conservation activity, who are you doing it for? So that's a big difference for us. But yeah, the timing couldn't be more pertinent. It feels like we were at the right time. That's my positive side on things. The asterisk is, let's hope we're not too late. It's your point about the imperative to do something. Let's hope it's not too late. What we do see a lot, though, is when you give the environment a chance. So we've got an amazing site in Cardigan Bay in Wales called Esgar Arth. It's a beautiful site. And the water from there flows down into Cardigan Bay. So the water affects porpoises and dolphins and incredible wildlife. If you haven't been to Aberairon, go. Looks like Balamory, multicoloured, amazingly beautiful site. And it's just so important that we get these sites and look after them in the right way, because they're just too precious otherwise.
What have been some of the more significant challenges that you faced along the way?
I don't know. Both everything and nothing at the same time. It's like I love quotes and sayings, and one is, what's the opportunity this now gives us? So you look at a site and you think it's X, and you realise it's got all these problems, and you go, okay, brilliant. So back to chess again, right? You turn the board around. Okay, it's a different set of circumstances and positions. I just play a different position, and I love solving each of the little problems. I look back now, I can't think of something I was like, that was horrible or that was terrible, and because they're not. They're just the next little thing to solve and move on. I think some of the sort of a personal level where the ones I find the difficult is when you're met with negativity. And so I love challenge and debate and discussion, but where you get we just shouldn't do anything, I struggle with that. And as long as I can, and fortunately, because we've built the team from scratch, I've got to surround myself with very, very different people from different backgrounds and different experiences. We've got people in their 50s, we've got people in their 20s, we've got people with PhDs, we've got people who can't think of anything worse than stepping foot in a university, we've got professional economists and the whole range of people. But they're all people who want to do something to make a change and to step forward. And that's the energy I find from those. I did find Christmas difficult because I had to not contact the team for a week. And because I had to be like, right, you have to let them have a holiday. So that's probably been the worst week, has been letting them have a holiday. We do a lot of miles and a lot of time on the road, and probably I'm sure a lot of people who sit here and talk to you about, I don't believe in work-life balance, right? Because it makes it sound like there's a fight. And the first time that phrase was ever used, apparently, was Henry Ford, because he invented the weekend, so that people had somewhere to drive the car. So he wanted to sell more cars, so he came up with the concept of the weekend, which means exchange all these hours of misery for a couple of days of it's all right. Well, if you do something you love, where's the balance? Just do more of what you love. And whether that's spending time with your family, or it's in the gym, or it's whatever sport or hobby you like, just do more of that. So we try and craft a working environment where everyone's really happy, that when they go home to the family, they're really happy doing that as well. We've got this one person on the team, Lara, who amazing adventurous. She's our mapping and data specialist. She's incredibly gifted, but she does annual leave better than anyone I've ever met. If she goes on annual leave, she's climbing a mountain, she's learning to surf, she's snowboarding, she's walking. I'm walking around Scotland, and every time she's going on, everyone's like, "Oh, what's the adventure?" And it's how you do everything. It's how you do everything. Do it with purpose and push it forward. Yeah, I'm not good at seeing challenges. I'm not good at celebrating either, but both things I need to work on, I guess.
With the benefit of hindsight, as you look back on the last couple of years with Oxygen, is there anything that you would do differently?
So the flippant answer is no, because I love where we are now. Could I improve on some things? Yeah, we do that every day. So my recruitment policy is only hire people better than you in a fundamental way. So when we first started, so at 14 now, effectively on day one, I had to wear all those 14 hats, right, in a really bad way. So like myself and our head of operations, Dave, built our website through the night to get something out there. Our marketing manager, Elle, incredible, absolute eye for detail, just classier presentation, beautiful stuff than me. Our website will be better. So each of those bits will be better as the next person comes in. We've got genius environmental economist who's that clever he can't use cups. So he keeps spilling coffee on himself because he's that clever. And we think that's the example of when someone's a genius, that they struggle to function. And he loves that anecdote. But our modelling work that we'd done in terms of planning for financial scenarios and things, he's taken that to a next level. So the answer is I wouldn't change anything, but I could have done everything better, and I will. So, but none of the sites we regret buying. One site we missed that got away. We were looking at 2 at the same time. We should have taken both. We focused on taking one because it was a complicated deal. We managed to buy 12,000 acres of Scotland in 4 weeks. Now, bear in mind, imagine trying to buy a house in 4 weeks, and 12,000 acres of Scotland, 10 built properties, no registration of title. Our amazing law firm, Burgess Salmon, incredible. They did both sides of the legal deal, and the other side's lawyers just initialed it to get it done. And we had to get that done in 4 weeks to do the deal. So we were all in, focused on this one. If we'd have gone a bit quicker, we'd have picked up another 18,000 acres as well. So that's kind of one that got away. But we got a beautiful site anyway. And we got the one we preferred. We got our first choice, but I'm greedy. I would have liked both.
So I'd imagine that there isn't, and I think this is true of most people that are running businesses, but particularly to your point, you're spending a lot of time on the road. I'd imagine there isn't a typical day for you. If there were, what might a typical day look like?
So one of the big changes for me this year and getting things right with the family is, sounds bizarre, but calendaring 7 days. So having calendar structure shared with my wife and kids, so we have visible calendars so everyone can see where everyone is and things like that. Big difference. If people out there don't do it, try it. It really helped us in terms of, you don't have to say, oh, where are you this day? Can we be back for this parents' evening? Are you doing that? Everyone knows where everyone is, which is great. Communication key. So calendaring 7 days and putting the family stuff in first is the big thing. But I have 2 kind of days, and Saturday and Sunday aren't really a differentiator. It's like I've got home days and away days, and Saturday and Sunday are home days. And other than lifting weights, my job is my hobby too. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate. So on a home day, get up in the morning, breakfast for the kids, spend some time with them, get out. So Saturday morning, pancake day. Dad cooks pancakes with the kids because I remember hearing someone I met say that their dad always cooked pancakes on a Saturday morning. I want my kids to remember that. My 4-year-old, who is an absolute treat of a human being, long blonde surf hair, refers to himself as the dude, pushes for a more elaborate mix of like marshmallows and chocolate chips on his pancakes every Saturday morning. Yeah, and my 6-year-old girl, Emma, studious, beautiful, kind, sweet. She'll just have an understated breakfast, and the dude's like, no, pile it on, Dad. Keep it going. So that's a Saturday. I'll get in the gym. Morning gym session is my thing. And then wife plays hockey at a weekend. So if I'm there, it's daddy daycare while she plays hockey at high level. And actually, they're the things that go in the calendar first. So her hockey on a Saturday, her hockey midweek training sessions, because I get so much flexibility because she does the majority of the parenting. That's the bit I need to do to balance it out. And then after that, I suppose my guilty pleasure at the weekend is I'll watch the NFL or the F1 if it's on. I love watching the sport. We talked about nuance, right? F1, a sport that I only got into because our head of operations, Dave, he was having his second child. He said, look, I'm going to be up through the night. I need you to watch Drive to Survive because I'm going to watch that to kill the hours. I need someone to talk to about it. I was like, right. And I ended up getting really into Formula One, read Adrian Newey's book and Ross Brawn's book. And the amount of things I could borrow from those worlds to apply to our business was amazing. So it's like any sport. The more you watch it, the more nuance you get. And I actually prefer qualifying and the build-up to the F1 race to the race because that's when you get the more scenarios and options and things like that. So a bit of sport of the weekend, a lot of time with the kids, out with the wife and the wife's dog. It's not my dog. We've got a lovely Labrador that will walk at the weekends. So they're the home days. The away days early. Always been a morning person. That's something else from my dad. So I always remember dad up at 6, out the door for 6:30 on building sites. So I'm up before 6 every morning in the gym. And then we travel a lot with our head of environment and various members of the team. And we'll get to one of the sites we've got, or we'll look at a new site. I'm really fortunate. It's funny what skills you have that you don't realize are valuable in business. But 2, that I'm just lucky. I always remember names and I don't get travel sick. So I can work on my laptop in a car. So the amount of hours we haven't lost because I can just work in a mobile office has made all the difference. Yep, so out on site, time on the environment, time in the environment. And that's something, as we've got bigger and more people to work with and more sites, one of my rules is I have to be on site a couple of days a week because everything pulls you back to a meeting or a boardroom or the city. And I'm like, no, I'll lose my authenticity. I'll lose my passion and my energy for it. If we end up with a run where it's 4 or 5 days where I haven't been anywhere, I'm climbing the walls. I need to get out. I need to have time in nature. I need to root what we're doing. And it does give that point of differentiation and that authenticity to what we're talking about, that I can say, Monday of this week, we spent time, we're fortunate to have 120 acres of Atlantic rainforest on Dartmoor, the most precious environment you'll ever see. It's literally like walking through Narnia. You walk people in there and you see their shoulders drop, their breathing slows, and they just relax. It changes. You've got to come and see it. You have to come and see it. It changes people. And that's part of the wider 800-acre estate there. We're there on Monday, walked a team of people through who want to partner with us on a natural capital project, which would be brilliant. But just seeing them experience that environment and talking about it and interacting with it and seeing wildlife, that's where my energy comes from, that and the team. So that's an average week if there is one.
And for the sake of listeners or purpose of listeners, maybe for my benefit, but in terms of those sites to which you refer, give us an example. What are you doing with them?
Yeah.
What's some what can we get a sense of what you're doing with those sites you're on?
So the first thing to say is every site's different. And where we have gone wrong with land in the past, people have imposed their will on an environment. So we've gone, I want to be a dairy farmer. I'm going to put a dairy farm next to this river. And all of a sudden, you've ruined the water quality because that's not the right place for a dairy farm. We end up with thousands of chicken sheds on the side of the River Wye that are killing that river because that's where people wanted them to be. Now, that's not to say chicken sheds and dairy farms are fundamentally wrong. That's for other people to decide. Not my bag, but fair enough. But they shouldn't be where they are. So our model is we look at a landscape, we listen to it, and we're patient. The environment takes forever to change.
Yeah.
If you come in straight away and say, it's like a business, right? If you come in on day one and say, I'm going to change this, well, you're only there because either the business is great and then don't change anything, or it's terrible. And then how do you know what to change anyway? So be patient, listen, involve local communities, involve local experts, and understand the landscape. Then what we'll do, depending on where it is. So Dartmoor, for example, there's a lot of invasive species. So things like rhododendrons and trees that are sort of choking the landscape that people have put there for ornamental reasons. We'll take those away. Different landscapes. So you go up to Scotland, there might be a grouse moor or a shooting enterprise. That's not for us. We're a conservation company. We're not into killing things. So we would stop a grouse shoot or a pheasant shoot and we'd say, that's not a sustainable, natural use of the land. We'll step away. So we pull away the bad and then we're patient. We watch and listen. In the right places, we might plant trees, but only in the right places. We're not a forestry company. We're not doing one thing in every place. There's a different approach to each different site. And I think that's another point of differentiation for us. So there are people out there that will buy land to put a solar farm on it. They'll buy land to plant trees. They'll buy land to build property. We might do all of those things in different ways. And we don't think there's anyone else out there in the market who's trying to do a holistic approach to land management and is not trying to ramp up anything anywhere. So we have not bought one site for any single particular purpose. There's a conservation element to it. There's a farming and food element to it. So we want our landscapes to produce food and feed people because we need to do that. But it's the right food in the right place. It's not... If you plant a maize crop on a sloping field, all you're doing is washing all your soil into rivers.
Right.
So we would never do that. That's not our thing. We believe land should be managed organically and sustainably and appropriately. And that's not to say we have all the answers. Anyone who claims they do is just lying. But what we have got is a load of questions, some really expert people in the team who we can work with, and we invite everyone in to come and give us an opinion. And that's one of the challenges, listening to every opinion and ensuring everyone who wants to be heard is heard, but making a decision and going with it that won't always be popular. Yeah, all sites different. We've got every different type of habitat you can imagine. So from Dartmoor, Atlantic rainforest, we've got a regenerative mixed farm, so arable and pastoral on Exmoor. We've got Cardigan Bay in Wales, which is an oak leaf woodland that we're supporting naturally to regenerate. Lots of woodlands will continue to spread out if we just don't let sheep eat all the new trees that are coming up or we don't cut them down. We then take you up to the Firth of Tay in Scotland. We uniquely own 523 acres of reed bed and the estuary bed. And most of the estuary, most of the wet part of this country is owned by the Crown, the coast.
Right.
And we got a unique part that was privately owned that we bought. So there's an example of an average day, right? So we see a site Thursday afternoon, we get it through our network that this site is available. We drive up through the night to the Firth of Tay in Scotland, meet the guy on site, walk the land with him in 40-mile-an-hour winds. Humongous, amazing guy, prop forward. His son's a front row forward for the Scottish rugby team. So I'm trying to chase him across this field because he's a lot faster than I am, listening to him talk about his site in wind that's so loud we can't hear him. Shows us his site, get back to his kitchen. He makes us a cup of coffee, do the deal for that site. He mentions his favourite distillery round the corner. I send him a bottle of whiskey the next day. We shake hands, do the deal. In the next 2 weeks, he gets offered twice as much money as I've paid him for that site. And he said, I'm a man of my word, and we shook hands, it's yours. So we uniquely bought that site, came back the next day. So we were away 24 hours, bought an incredible area of land. And that one, we're leaving alone. It's precious. It's amazing for wading birds and special bird life up there. So we're speaking to the RSPB, who have land near us, make sure we're working together with them in terms of what the right thing to do here. And at the moment, it's just leave it alone for nature. Every site's different. And you're welcome to come and see them all.
I'd love to. I don't like to dwell on negative through this podcast. It's not its purpose, but I am intrigued as to what makes you angry, because I would imagine that the environment is such an emotive subject, polarizes opinions, and that is the question I want to ask. What makes you angry?
Yeah, I don't often get angry. What does make me angry?
You don't strike me as an angry man, but I would imagine. But you're very passionate,
yeah.
And I think with passion comes emotion, and there must be, like anything. So I think there are things that, daft example. I suppose it is, in a very micro sense, it's environmentally impactful, but fly tipping, right? I'm driving through a beautiful part of the country where I live this morning, and somebody's just emptied the contents of a van by the side of the road. And that I was livid. I just think, what on earth would possess someone to do damage to what is a beautiful hedgerow, and someone's just pulled up and emptied the contents of a van. You think I have to relax a little bit and get on my way. But things like that, that might be a daft example, but I think if you're passionate about something and you see injustice in some way, shape or form, that can create frustrations. When it's something as so important as the environment.
I think the reality so I don't think anything on the environment side, I just don't think I'm surprised anymore.
Right.
I think the reality is everything negative that's been done to the environment, I kind of just go, and that's why we need to do what we're doing. And that's why. The things that I was trying to come back to the last time I was angry, I'm quite protective of our team.
Yeah.
So if we have neighbours or people associated with a site and they're aggressive to team members, that'll make me angry. And I'll want to step in and I have to be mindful to go, hold on a minute, these are adults we're dealing with here. They can fight their own battles, but I'll always, are you okay? Would you like me to step in? I hate bullies.
Yeah.
So that makes me step in. But environmentally, I think I'm just so reconciled. So there was a note last night that on social media about the environment minister taking a donation from an oil company. Yeah. Okay. And one of the responses on Twitter was, Richie Sunak should really look into this. And I was like, he probably introduced them. Why are we surprised? I think adaptability and learning these things as we go has kind of stood me in good stead. I was, in fact, this is an interesting story. So pre-meeting my wife, I was really angry. So we talked about academia and sport and things. So if you imagine me, age 23, doing a PhD, which is academically adversarial, like PhD Viva, they call it a defense because they bring in some experts to yell at you about how wrong your thesis is and you have to defend it. And then I'm playing contact sport at a high level. All I'm doing other than that is lifting weights with loud music in my ears. I was a really angry man. And I met my wife in the queue to a nightclub. So I'm stood in this nightclub queue being quite loud and unpleasant. I get a tap on the shoulder from a stunningly beautiful blonde lady who said, "Shut up, nobody cares." And that's how I met my wife. And that has underlined like how we've lived from that point onwards. So also, it loops back to childhood, right? We were poor and I was scared and I didn't have a lot of cash and I had a big chip on my shoulder and resent. And I'm very fortunate now that I'm not in that position and I'm not scared anymore. And I think that's probably why I'm not angry. I'm fortunate that I've got a healthy family and everyone's well and I can see, well, what opportunity does this give us to change something? How can we deliver something? But you are right. I'm very passionate about what I do and I'll get frustrated if we don't deliver the quality in something or we miss an opportunity and I'll push us to do more and to go further. But yeah, I think I've kind of figured out not to get angry.
I think the thing that strikes me about much of what I've read of late about the actions that we're taking globally to combat climate change, and the argument in the sense of,
are we taking many? Yeah,
well, this is the point. I mean, I've seen a few things recently that have really led me to question the sanity of, and actually in a healthy way to kind of dig into this. So I was watching something recently, and I think I'm right in saying that Britain, and if I get my figures wrong, I'm sure you're rightly, you should correct me. Britain's responsible for about 2% of total global carbon emissions. Is that
Let's go with it. Yeah, let's
broadly speaking, correct? Yeah. So the argument that was being put through was, it's all very well for us to preach to the rest of the world about we need to make all these changes because clearly there are some very challenging circumstances for many people in this country, but fundamentally we are a wealthy country, sixth, seventh largest economy. We're a wealthy country. There are clearly some parts of the country of the globe who are very poor, and survival. So if you could say to someone, well, hey, you could dig a blooming great big hole in the ground and take a load of fossil fuel out and create inordinate wealth for your family for generations, you're going to do a hell of a lot of damage. And those future generations may or may not be around. But hey, you can put some money in your pocket. So that vested interest, that sense of me, for many, so that argument around can we try and impact on a size and a scale that we really need to affect change? Or actually is it, and I was thinking about this as I was driving in today, talking to you, that story around, I can't remember, I'm going to butcher this now, but there's somebody walking along a beach and there's a load of starfish and they start picking them up and throwing them back in the sea. And it's like thousands of starfish on a beach. You can't throw them all back in, right? But hey, if we just start with one. And I wonder if, we've all got to do our bit, but how do we impact? Is that a sense of frustration that you feel in the sense that the issue around climate change is so vast? Can we even think about changing the whole dynamic?
It's happening in this country, right? We've approved a new coal mine in Cumbria.
Yeah, of course.
Because people want jobs. They need to feed their family. And I've spoken here. My parents would have been saying, we just want those jobs. We just want to do those things. And I will never, ever say to anyone, you shouldn't do the best you think you can for your family and your kids. Instead, what I'm going to focus on is the change we can make. And when my children say to me, we knew the planet was burning. What did you do about it? And I get goosebumps when I say, I can look them in the eye and say, I tried. I think that's all we can do. Do what you can with what you've got, where you are. And that's all any of us can do. And I think we as a country have an opportunity and a responsibility to showcase what good looks like. So there's a group of people who think the next great international export out of this country is our approach to climate and environment and the legislature, nail that one, the legal framework behind that and the policies and the procedures and the marketing mechanisms and the documentation that allows the trillions of pounds and dollars that are sat in investment funds to be pivoted towards environmental good from environmental bad. And that can start to deliver the sort of change we talk about. If it doesn't, it might be too late anyway, but I would still rather have tried than not. But we are not an agent of social change. We are a conservation organisation who's going to try and save just enough of this country and in the years to come, hopefully other countries. That means when the next generation of people, and maybe those people who are sat, children now, reading at night because there is a fossil fuel lamplight on, but allows them to read, solves the problem in the end. The next Elon Musk that strips carbon out of the atmosphere. But we're going to try and buy him a bit of time to do it and role model what good in terms of land management and that change we need there looks like.
So what excites you about the future?
Everything. Like, we are going to be the world's first conservation-focused unicorn company. We are going to have a natural capital value on the land we have of £1 billion. And that will make every investor, every bank, every fund take notice and go, oh, we can profit from protecting the world. And then, in the nicest possible way, philanthropy's got us so far, it won't get us the whole way. If we can make a fair return and generate value for investors, wouldn't you rather your pension was doing good and making you a return? And wouldn't you accept maybe even a slightly smaller return to be able to say, I'm doing good with it? Read an amazing story this morning about an incredible cross-country athlete from Devon, and she's turned down the right to go run at the World Championships because it's in Australia and she won't fly there. We're going to send her a note and say how amazing we think she is. That's the next generation. They're not going to accept anything but. So I'm really excited about what we will do as a company. I'm excited about the changes we can make on land. I'm excited that we're going to plant 100,000 trees this year. I'm excited that we want to welcome back different species to our landscapes and places. We're also going to build new sustainable homes for people that at the moment are having to move out of rural communities because there's nowhere for them to live. I'm excited about the fact that we can help people understand that local organic food is better for them and is the way to a better life and a better lifestyle. And I'm excited about welcoming you and everyone else to the sites that we've got and finding ways to balance all these little challenges and problems. So one thing we face is we've got some of these most amazing protected environments. We want to show them off, but by inviting people to them, we risk doing damage to them. So how do you balance loving and protecting nature with showing it to people? We haven't got the answers yet, but we'll find them. I'm uber excited about the incredible people we're going to hire this year. We're just recruiting for a head of built property because almost inadvertently, it's a feature of what we do now, but we've ended up with a lot of built property. So we've got 40 houses already on the portfolio, 100,000 square feet of built property potential. We need someone to transform that into the most amazing local homes and ecotourism opportunities. And in the space of a fortnight, we've had 50-odd applicants for this with an entire range of skill sets that are going to make us think differently and make me a heck of a lot better. So really excited about that. I'm pretty excited about everything.
Who's been the greatest influence on your career and why?
Wow. Greatest influence on me as a person is my wife, without a shadow of a doubt. A lot of influence on Chris. So I kind of asset strip people of ideas, right? So everyone I'll meet, I'll try and learn everything I can from, but a few stand out. So amazing lady called Lisa Pinney, who was one of my first bosses. She's now one of my kids' godmothers. She is incredible, MBE, currently chief exec of the Coal Authority, gay rights activist, was on the board of Stonewall, and just amazing person. Her and her wife, Kath, incredible. A chap called Major Dave Sheldon, who I worked for at the Environment Agency. He was the youngest major in the British Army, then went sailing around the world, and then ultimately ran the continuous improvement, so the internal business function at the Environment Agency, and then the St. John Ambulance, and he was an incredible influence. Yeah, so many people have little bits and pieces as I've gone along the way. I'm fortunate to have two fantastic friends, one of which is a expert performance psychologist who I think you'd get a real kick out of meeting. So he's got a PhD in performance psychology, and I've been really fortunate to have him on speed dial every step of the way. So it's a bit like having Dr. Steve Peters, but that's your mate as well. So that's really good. And then our head of operations I've known for 15 years, went to uni with him, and he is the exact opposite personality to me. So logical, every fine detail, high risk management in terms of he's worked in heavy industry and things like that. So nothing in the environment sector, but everything but. I could name 50 of them. So many brilliant people I work with and learn from every day. And that's true of everyone in the team as well. We don't hire people that can't teach us something.
It's a Steve Jobs analogy, right? It's what's the point in hiring smart people and telling them what to do?
Yeah. And another one of those I like is you don't whisper in the ear of the lead violinist during a solo. So hire them and let them do a great job.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I like that too. So who do you admire?
The admiration bit to me comes more to real people than like famous people. Yeah. So bizarre story coming here. So there's a shampoo advert, I think it's Pantene, and there's a blind lady on there with stunning red hair. Follow her on Instagram. And she's like, I will not let anything stop me having every experience you can imagine. So she climbs mountains and she navigates the world with her guide dog. She inspires me. People who do the impossible and push through and just go, no, I'm doing it. No is not a thing. And like extreme athletes and stuff really helps. So I love Ross Edgley, the guy that swam around Great Britain. Have you had him on?
No.
Oh my God.
He's an incredible guy. I love the book. Yeah. I've read his book.
Yeah. It's such an incredible guy. So it's those people that push the boundary. And a friend of his, Cal Major, she's paddleboarded around Britain and the length of Britain. Incredible. So yeah, people like that. You get the Elon Musk of this world that people often say, but he's as much of a brand as anything else, right? And intentionally divisive. And like I've read what I can on him, but yeah, it's real people that inspire me that do things. As we were traveling here this morning, there's this lady walking her two kids into a nursery, and she had a toddler in one hand and newborn in a car seat in the other, and a bag on her back, and mum strength to do that. I'm like, that's incredible, So it ultimately comes back to my wife every time. Like I could not do what I do without her amazing support. So yeah, but inspired every day by different people, and it's well, if you just open your eyes and look and listen, you can find inspiration and guidance and special everywhere. Whenever we sort of interview or work with certainly like young people in their careers, and they're like, I just don't know where to look for it. What? Like everywhere. Pick up any book, turn on. I reckon you could do a better master's degree on YouTube now than you could at most universities. The amount of stuff that's there. and just make use of your time, right? Like in the gym, I've got a podcast in, I've got a YouTube clip on something. What can I learn? Deep dive into something else. And that's what I love about business at the minute, that you can find a new subject and go, okay, I'm going to deep dive for 2 weeks in risk management or investor relations or how this part of it works. And that's why the variety of sites we've got and the variety of parts of our business keep me really excited. It means I don't have to, if I was working on one bit, I'd push that too fast and too hard, because I can flip between all the different ones. By the time I get back to it at what feels like a comfortable pace for me, it's a comfortable pace for the people that were there as well. Who inspires you?
Goodness, I think to your point, I was interested as you were saying that inspiration comes in so many forms. So I think we have a full of broad sweeping statements, but we have a natural tendency to associate inspiration with those kind of superstar figures, put them on a plinth and, it's your Elon Musk or it's your Lionel Messi or it's your Michael Jordan, whatever your thing is, we could pick a superstar in that world and we go, well, that's inspirational. The whole purpose behind Extrology was this sense that actually people are extraordinary, right? So I think it partly stemmed from, and I cannot remember if it was Captain, Colonel, Major, Tom, the chap who sadly passed now, but that through COVID walked however many miles it was around the garden of his nursing home with a frame and raised millions for the NHS. I can't remember the exact numbers. But I thought, do you know what? That's inspiration, right? Someone who can't get off the couch today through whatever reason, but that tomorrow can run does the couch to 5K or whatever. You can find sources of inspiration in any one of a number of ways. So I think that's people truly are extraordinary.
Yeah. When you're telling that story, the one that is my sort of famous figure that I get the most inspiration from, Alan Turing. So the guy that broke the Enigma code at Bletchley Park.
And what an awful set of circumstances through which he, I think I'm right in saying he was the last person to be convicted in the UK for being homosexual.
I don't know if he was the last, but he certainly was.
One of the last.
Yeah.
He was chemically castrated. Yeah. That is abhorrent. And that's within living memory, right? The thing what an incredible genius of a mind in some fairly horrific circumstances.
Yeah. So one day I would like a knighthood, if the Crown are listening out there, for services to the environment. And I'll politely say, thank you very much. You can have it back. I'd like to give it to Alan Turing posthumously, please.
Yeah.
So,
and that guy saved literally millions of lives as a consequence of his actions.
So my wife, who is very much the brains of the outfit, she did maths at uni and did her dissertation on the breaking the Enigma code. And going back 8 years, it would have taken the world's fastest supercomputer 20 years to break the Enigma code today, and people broke it in 1940s.
So I bring this back, seamless link to the environment, but I am a eternal optimist. But I have huge faith in the human spirit, in that the human spirit will prevail, and that actually we've done all this bad stuff. We can fix it because there's incredibly smart, well-meaning, well-intentioned, decent, honourable human beings that are all pervasive. I think that we live in a world, and I'm not going to do down the media model, but that it strikes me that good news no longer sells, right? So it has, the more extreme it can be, the more horrific it can be, the more catastrophic it can be, the more clicks it generates, the more eyeballs it gets, the more money it makes. And that becomes, it's ever perpetuating. But actually, in my experience, the vast majority of people that I meet along my way, of all shapes and sizes, colours and creeds, are wonderful people with great outlooks, great positivity, great intellect, great drive, great energy, and huge potential. And I look at particularly, you've got young children, mine are a little bit older, but I look at their generation and they've got so much to give. And that, I think, that gives me some encouragement as to what could happen to the world. Yeah. And that there is good out there, inherent good, and the vast majority of people fit that bill.
We just have to give them a world to save.
Yeah.
We just have to still be here long enough that they've got a chance. We did an intern recruitment campaign recently, fully paid internship, and it was a love letter to the Apple ad campaign of Think Differently. So we said we want the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, and we styled it on that campaign and said, look, if you can help us scale conservation in any way, we want to hear from you. And we had hundreds of applicants from just the most amazing array of backgrounds. The most out there CV was from a transgender clown-inspired fashion designer. And the CV was beautiful, full clown regalia dressed the person in. And they wrote and said, I don't know if I can help. I just love the advert so much I wanted to apply. And they got through the first couple of phases of sifting and ultimately, I'm not really sure I can do anything to help me around, but thank you. Amazing experience. And we met one candidate along the way who was 18 and she was between A-levels and was in a gap year going to university. And we got off this intro call going, oh my God, this person's incredible. So like mature and eloquent. And I was like, it's breathtaking, the talent in young people. And we didn't actually get her. She ended up with like so many job offers. She'd got something in place already, which was great. And we wished her well. But we got 4 other incredible candidates across a wider range of ages and all over the country. But we will always keep an intern role on our structure because I'm getting older, close to 40 this year, close to, I know you're surprised, right? Yeah. I didn't get the reaction there. But if we keep somebody, and it doesn't mean young necessarily, but it means new to the company, and they come in for 3 months, they don't have the same blinkers as us. They have a new ethos, a new outlook, and they can say, what about this or what about that? So we'll always have at least one person that comes through every 3 months and can challenge us on things and make sure we're open to new ideas and things. I think it's too easy to get in an echo chamber.
So what does success mean to you?
I think that changes every day. So my success today is moving forward. Links back to American football. There's a famous scene in a movie called Any Given Sunday called The Inches Speech.
Al Pacino?
Yeah. It's the 6 inches in front of your face. Yeah. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. So progress. It doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked down. I've been knocked down a lot of times. When you play American football with bigger boys, it happens a lot. Get back up again, knock down 6, get up 7. So moving forward, progressing, finding opportunities to make a difference for the environment, for people, for wildlife, to be able to say we left the environment in a better position than we found it. So that's the immediate one, and doing your best in every scenario. So my team have a little wink with each other when I use certain lines, and it's how you do anything is how you do everything is the one I use a lot. Make sure the quality matters, make sure it's purposeful. Even if we decide not to do something, make a purposeful choice with that. But as a company, it is to really move the needle and have that impact, to scale conservation, to hit that. Ultimately, by 2030 in this country, we want 250,000 acres under management, which would give us the single largest conservation portfolio of management, would put us in the top 10 private landowners in the country, if not top 2 or 3. So that's in this country. And globally by 2030, imagine if I could come back and see you and say, we have 1 million acres under management that is being looked after for the good of the environment and the good of nature. Wouldn't that be an amazing thing to give to that next generation of exciting people we talked about and said, your turn, what can you do with it next? So I'm not good at celebrating, but I think I might have a chocolate brownie and a coffee if we got that done.
So looking back, what advice, as you mentioned 40, if you'd have asked me, I'd have hazarded a guess, I'd have said 35 at a push. So but as you approach, therefore, your 40th birthday, if you reflect back to 21-year-old Rich Stockdale, what advice would you give yourself?
Make sure you go to that nightclub on that evening where you met your wife. Otherwise, that would have been an error. The danger of giving yourself advice, right? What if you take the foot off the gas? What if you miss a bad experience that shaped you and made you who you were? So I honestly wouldn't change anything. But on those, tough times or difficult times, there's a saying, this too will pass. However good a day you're having, tomorrow's going to come. However bad a day you're having, tomorrow's going to come. But I think if I was giving anyone generic advice, it would be find the thing you love, spend more time doing that, and just outwork everyone in the room. Because you'll turn around, you'll look, years will have passed, and you'll be stood there achieving the things you want to achieve, having all the luck you can. Hopefully you'll achieve what you want to achieve in life and have inspired a lot of people along the way and hopefully helping them achieve what they want to do as well. We're really fortunate now that whatever it is you want to do, if you're exceptional at it and passionate, I think you can make a career out of it. Whether you make tables or glasses or pottery, if you're brilliant at it with social media, I think you can now make a career out of that, which is great. So follow your heart and work your butt off, I think is my advice.
So where can people go to find out more about oxygen conservation?
So website, oxygenconservation.com. Also, I write a lot on LinkedIn at the minute. I'm really enjoying that. With the car journeys and the travel, it's given me an opportunity to reflect and write on some environmental issues. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Fantastic. Rich, it's been wonderful to speak with you this morning. I've really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, as is always the case with all things Extrology. But I think it's wonderful that we have people like you out there leading the charge, flying the flag, and doing the work that you do. And I think it's a wonderful proposition. And I wish you continued success in your endeavours. And I think it would be really a good idea, if you'd be open to it, to perhaps we should do a follow-up episode at some point in the future to see just how you're progressing, because you're on a real tear, and my sense is, and I've no doubt with you at the helm, you'll go from strength to strength, and the great people you've got working with you will go from strength to strength.
I'm very lucky to have an awesome team. But no, thank you so much for having me. Had a great chat and learned a lot on the way too, so thank you.
Fantastic. Rich Stockdale, thanks very much. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to today's Extrology podcast. I really appreciate your audience and ears. If you've enjoyed it, then why not hop onto iTunes and give us a review? I'd really appreciate anything that you might have to say. Any feedback always gratefully received, and look forward to hosting you next time. See you soon. Just a reminder, today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners. Visit www.progressotalent.com today for more information.